Welcome to Speaking Queerly, a podcast hosted by Kaleidoscope Youth Center, an LGBT youth center located in Columbus, Ohio. I'm Mallory, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Civic Engagement and Advocacy Manager here at KYC.
I'm Lane, I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the Community Education and Research Manager at KYC.
How are you doing, Lane? I feel like it's been a minute since we've had you on as a co-host, so
thank
it's good
you.
to have you back.
Good to be back.
We've got a lot of excitement here happening, but let's first let's debrief the day. I need to debrief my day. I don't know about you, but...
Well, it started at 4 in the morning.
It started at 5:45 in the morning. I promise this is all timely, right? This is all relevant to the conversation today, but we did have swim practice this morning.
Yes.
And Lane did a set that I probably would have enjoyed doing a little bit more, but...
It was just like a distance set, I guess?
Yeah. Deceivingly so, because it was broken up quite a bit.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was. I'm glad I started my day swimming because I feel like I decompress a little bit and start off with a little bit more energy, which I needed because I actually just got back from being at the Ohio State House.
Woo!
Yeah, this is relevant, for a hearing of House Bill 6, the transgender athlete ban here in Ohio. And this was the bill's second hearing, and it was for proponent testimony, so not opponent. So I was really just there, a face in the crowd to scowl or roll my eyes at some of the speakers. Some folks caught me on the Ohio channel rolling my eyes, and honestly,
good.
Not even mad about it. I wish I had been making worse faces than that.
That's funny.
Yeah. Did you catch any of the hearing at all?
No, I wasn't watching it.
Honestly, good for you.
Thank you.
We kind of shared on the KYC social media that this was happening, but I also was like, don't feel compelled to watch because...
Yeah. Proponent testimony is always just like naysayers, and they just say misinformed things, so...
Yeah, misinformation is definitely the name of the game, and just misogyny. It really rubs me the wrong way. A lot of the things during this testimony rub me the wrong way, but specifically when, like, cisgender women are up there saying, men are always faster and stronger and better at sports than women. I'm like, really? You're gonna go up there and be like, yeah, boys are faster than me. I play like a girl, you know? What?
Yeah, we should move beyond the you throw like a girl jokes.
Yes, and it's not even being used as a joke. They're just like owning up to like, oh yeah, like
I'll never be as good.
We're just so dainty and cute, and then we cannot play sports as good as the boys, So we also just the whole I'm trying to figure out an articulate way to word this, but so much of their argument is like, oh, well, we don't want sports to be unfair, so we need to get rid of the people who are slaughtering the competition. It's like, okay, cool. So all basketball players should be 5'5" because it's not fair if you're tall and you play basketball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all football players should weigh 100 pounds because it's not fair if you're big and strong and can tackle better. I don't know anything about football, but
yeah, I couldn't even tell you what features would serve you well in each sport.
Right. But that's again assuming that people assigned male at birth are going to be stronger, faster, whatever. You know what I mean? And then assuming that they're going to have an inherent competitive advantage, which is not true.
No.
Right.
I've been on a kick watching sports documentaries lately, and so yesterday I watched something about Caitlin Tui, who's a distance runner who's now I think still in college, and it's just absolutely crushing national records in the adult division even when she was still a child. So what about her?
Right, exactly. There's no guarantee that your age, your height, your weight, your strength, your gender, your sex assigned at birth, there's no guarantee that any of those things will make you a better athlete. But anyway, I just had to get all of that off my chest because it was a lot to listen to. But excitingly and relevantly, we have a really cool guest here on Speaking Queerly today who we're so excited to introduce you to, and we'll let her introduce herself. So let's just kick to the interview.
Sweet.
So Nix, welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Of course, we're so excited to have you here. You get to wear the badge of honor that you're the first KYC youth to be a guest on Speaking Queerly, so welcome. Normally when we have a guest on, we like to read their bio and introduce themselves, but I want to hear you introduce yourself. Why don't you tell us, your name, pronouns, a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm Nix, she, her. I'm 14, freshman in high school. I kind of collect knowledge for fun, if that makes sense.
It does.
I'll just kind of learn about random stuff.
What are you currently learning about?
Oh, it's not in any topic. I just get knowledge and then I learn all that I can in like 10 minutes about it, and then I drop it until someone brings it up.
So it means you're a really good person to have on someone's trivia team, right?
Yeah, I actually am on the trivia team for my school.
Nice.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah. On the practice session, I did really well. And then on the actual first game, I got no points.
Yeah, that's how it goes. It's how it goes. Well, yeah, is there anything else you want to share about who you are?
I mean, as it relates to today, I'm trans.
Cool.
I think that's it.
And when this episode is airing, it will be Trans Day of Visibility. So here you are, being visible and speaking clearly. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. As you know from our drop-in center, you know that we always kick things off with an add-on question. So I think when we are some behind-the-scenes magic here for those who are not actually with us, and if you want to pretend like you're here with us, you can actually watch what you're listening to on YouTube as well. But if you're not here with us, you don't know that our setup is quite condensed, right? And as we were setting things up, whatever, we were kind of joking about like the emoji faces that we were making as we were trying to like contort ourselves into this space, right? So we want to know, what is your most used emoji? Yeah, you can start.
So while I don't use emojis very often, I do use that like less than 3 and then add on an ungodly amount of 3s.
Yes.
Or slashes.
So like the old-fashioned emoji heart, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
Wow.
Yes. Sometimes I feel like I use that more when I'm like kind of like awkward, like not actually meaning love. It's just
Oh yeah, no, I do that as like it's like, oh yes, this is my
yeah, like cool. So glad.
Cool.
Yeah, I feel that. How about you, Lane?
I just checked before the episode, and it's the sobbing emoji.
Oh yeah, like the OG, like just the straight tears.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think
I use it like unironically.
right.
I could never.
I think my most used, and I guess I didn't check, but the face that like I'm not gonna be able to do it, but like the one that's kind of like a squiggle, like
you just got punched in the face, kind of.
yeah, kind of like the this is awkward and weird. Maybe I'll like pop in these emojis when I edit the video, right? So we can see. But you know what I'm talking about, like the okay, whatever.
I think Nyx is like really doing a good impression.
Yeah,
of that.
that's probably the closest we've got. That or like the face palm one. That one again, unironic, but you know, you can see where we're coming from here.
I'm surrounded by oldie moldies.
Yes. Yikes! Tell us how you really feel, Nyx. Yeah, this is where I don't admit that I'm using like the laughing emoji one, right? Because I don't ever do that. I was listening at home. Well, cool. So, Nyx, one of the reasons why we really wanted to have you on the podcast, first off, is because Lane and I are just only ever wanting to talk about swimming right now. Like, I've recruited them to join the team that I swim with, and now I'm really excited because I have someone to talk to about it all the time. But one of the things that you and I first bonded over when I first met you was how you're a swimmer too. And something that I think is like, unfortunately really timely is talking about trans athletes in sports, right? Because like any other high school athlete, you probably like didn't expect this to be like a big thing, right? You're just like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna swim, whatever. But
Yeah.
unfortunately,
You'd never think the person that's slowest on the team would be the one that's talked about the most.
right? Good point. Yeah. So that brings up a question for me. So you're on the swim team. How would you describe like where you fall on the team? Like I guess you jumped right into it.
Yeah, at the bottom pretty much. I have chronic pain in my legs, so practicing as much as everyone else is difficult. So then I end up getting times that aren't nearly as good as anyone else. But compared to myself, I do improve. Like I started the season with I think like a 45 second PR for the 50 free, and then ended it with I think like a 38.
No way.
Okay, that's
like a
speedy.
lot of time to drop off in the 50 free too.
Wait,
Yeah, but also like I hadn't done any workout for the past year
Right.
since the season ended, the
Hey.
previous season ended, but still.
Right. Yeah, no one has to know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So how long have you been swimming?
I started swimming in 6th grade for a team, but I've always been really into swimming. Like, instead of going on like water slides or anything whenever I'd go to like a water park, I'd always just be swimming just because it was fun to have that water rush by you.
Yeah. I totally relate to the feeling. There's nothing quite like hearing the bubbles go past your ears and just kind of feeling like, I don't know, isolated in a way.
I never actually got the sound of the bubbles until just that last season because I could never swim fast enough for the bubbles to be right by my ears.
Right. There you go. Oh, that's cool that you're getting to experience a different level then too. That's awesome.
One thing I love about swimming is that like I'm constantly humming. They're like kind of like like sounds.
Every single second that I am underwater, I am humming.
And then I'm always kind of self-conscious because I'm like, okay, no one can hear this, right? Because like everyone else is humming to themselves too, and I don't hear them. So.
But then I'm like, is everyone else not humming? And that's why I'm not breathing as well? But no, just the fact that I can't breathe very well.
But I think the humming helps your breathing too, because it helps like regulate your exhaling too.
And Mallory told me that humming helps clear water out of your nose, like when you do a flip turn.
Yeah.
I still can't do flip turns.
Really?
Nope.
They're so scary. They send me into fight or flight.
Yeah, I've been trying to do flip turns since I was in 6th grade. And I think I got to do it back when I still could do meets. I think I got to do a total of 1 flip turn, and I got disqualified because I did too many because it was backstroke, and I flipped over too early.
Yep, that'll get you.
There are so many rules in swimming that I totally don't understand.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're always changing too. You know, without this turning into like a total like nuances of swimming rules podcast, they just changed the backstroke rule of like how you can finish too. So I'm like,
They did?
Yeah.
What is it
like,
now?
So before you had to touch on your back, but like your head had to be above water, like most of your body had to be above water. Now, with like a few meters to go or yards, depending on what pool, you can dive under and just dolphin kick on your back to the wall.
I'm sorry, what?
Right. It's to me, it sounds like a concussion waiting to happen, but
Yeah, I've broken this tooth, or these 2 front teeth, because I was doing backstroke, and I didn't realize I was too close to the wall, and I flipped over, and I slammed my teeth into there, and they shattered.
Ouch.
Right up to the base of the teeth.
Oh my goodness.
So these 2 are completely fake.
I never would have
look
known.
great.
Yeah. Wow. See,
I'll just say for the listeners at home, I also swim and have mostly no idea what they're talking about with the rules.
Right. Yeah, for those who have more questions about swimming, please let us know if you're
You can email me at Mallory.
Email me at mallory@kycohio.org. I'm always happy to talk about flip turns and USA swimming regulations. Anyway, so you said you started swimming when you were in 6th grade. You're now in 9th grade.
Yes.
And when did you first come out as trans? Because I know you mentioned saying when I used to do meets. Like, when did you first come out as trans?
I came out in 7th grade. I didn't do, I wasn't in the team that year because, 2020.
Right.
But that's when I came out, and everything happened pretty quickly after that. It was like winter.
Wow. So, like, you went into the pandemic, or like pre-pandemic, you had not yet come out.
Yes.
Pandemic happens, you're coming out, you're like, starting to present differently, I imagine, right? And then all of a sudden you come back and you're like rejoining the sport that you had done before, and like, tell me a little bit about what that was like to kind of get back into the swing of things.
So I was coming back last year in the winter, and that's when I was first starting to know that there was so much about trans women in sports. And I was just so confused because, again, I was the slowest on my team, and I was also one of the oldest on my team. So I was just like, in what way is this unfair exactly?
Right. Was that a conversation that ever came up, like, as you were swimming? Like, did your coach ever mention this to you, or any of your teammates, or was this something that you were just receiving from the outside and having to...
So I knew about it a little bit. One of my coaches was talking to me about meets, though, and was like, yeah, if you're going to go to a meet, you would have to be in the boys part with a approved boys suit.
So that's something that I've had to do a lot of research into myself, because I'm a swim coach for a youth league here in Columbus, or a youth team, and one of our swimmers who I coach is trans as well, and she's a trans girl, and so we've had to look into that about like what can she wear, who can she compete as, who does she have to compete as. And one thing, so for those who aren't as familiar, OHSAA, the Ohio High School Athletic Association, they've had this set of guidelines in place for about a decade that talks about like how, you know, somebody who identifies as a trans person like can compete on the sports team that aligns with their gender identity, and it involves, of course, like having to be on hormones for a certain period of time, and you have to like go and have physicals, you know, to see, you know, of course, because they're looking for quote unquote unfair advantages, right? But for USA Swimming, which is what like a lot of sports, you know, USA, even non-USA teams fall under those guidelines, you actually don't have to do any of that. You don't have to prove any of your hormone levels. Even if you're not on hormones, they don't care unless you're competing at the elite level. So unless you're making it to Junior Olympics or Junior Nationals, things like that, they just don't care. You know, if you're just swimming for a dual meet or whatever. So I think it's interesting then that your coach was just like, oh no, you'd have to swim as a boy.
Yeah.
I also think I want to take a second to note that when rules like that are in place, it suggests that in order for a trans person to be valid, they have to medically transition.
Oh, 100%.
And have to want that medical transition, and that is not part of the definition of being trans at all. Lots of people choose not to medically transition.
Also, on that note, I have been on a wait list to get blockers for 2 years and 8 months. So like, if I had started then, if I was old enough and I had started HRT then, I would have been swimming in meets by now.
Right. So the fact that this rule exists and it takes into account so many factors that are beyond your control. It's like, yeah, if it were up to me, I'd be doing this, right? But you can't control the wait list. You can't control how soon that you're able to get that. That is so frustrating. So talk us through, go ahead.
Correction, 1 year and 8 months, not
1
2.
year and 8 months. But still, that still would have been enough time to meet the guidelines, you know? That's so frustrating. So now you're in high school. You've been swimming for your high school's team. Tell us a little bit about what that's like.
So, I was swimming for my high school team. I just go to practices and then maybe I'll watch a meet, but like the meets are very loud, so I usually don't. But yeah, I just kind of swim there, and then whenever my school would do like awards for stuff for like sports, I couldn't get recognized by them because I wasn't competing officially. Like last year, my time dropped from a minute 15 to 45, which is massive.
That is huge, and that's in the 50 freestyle?
Yes.
That's
awesome.
Amazing.
And someone else got the award for most improved.
Because they
dropped by 10 seconds.
And so when you are, like you're talking about your PRs, does your coach give you the opportunity to swim these events during practice to try to beat your best time, or?
Yeah, but it's only in like it's on a piece of paper now that's going to be lost, and it's not going to be put on anything else kind of way.
That is so frustrating. And for those who are listening, like if you've never done a swim practice, and Lane, feel free to chime in. Swim practices are not easy.
No. I almost threw up 5 times when I made my 100 free PR.
Right. And so it's not like you're doing these practices and like, oh, you're just floating on your back, right? Like you are working your butt off day in and day out. And then to not be able to...
Oh, sorry to
No,
interrupt.
go for it, Lane.
I describe swimming as I describe swimming as like either distance running or sprinting, depending on the event, but without the air.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's just what is so amazing to me, is that you're putting yourself through this, going to every practice, like showing up, being there with your team, and not being able to do the fun part, so to speak.
Right.
I wasn't even I wasn't even going to the like standard like, oh, you have it at like 4 o'clock practices. I had it at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Or not 5, sorry, 6 in the morning.
But still.
Still very early.
Still,
so
I had to
early.
wake up at 5 to get there.
So you are waking up at 5, getting into a cold pool at 6 in the morning, which again, Lane, I'm looking to you. Like, we know it's not.
We do this so many times during the week.
And it's in the winter too. So granted, it's an indoor pool, but you're still cold. You're jumping into a cold pool. You're swimming for however long the practice is. You know, you're doing all of this work that, you know,
Largely goes unrecognized.
it does. Yeah, 100% goes unrecognized.
Yeah.
So like, how does that make you feel? I mean, I can imagine, but
It's really frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, my swim coach hasn't seen that kind of improvement, that 30-second improvement from last year, in a really long time. And the only way that can be recognized is in a one-off that you just mentioned at the end of the season. That was only heard by me. It was like, what? Okay, but that ultimately means nothing to anything.
right. What about, like, tell me what you do get out of swimming, right? Because like part of, you know, you're not just like, you know, doing these really challenging workouts and being like, oh yeah, I love almost throwing up 5 times, but like, what are some of the good things you get out of it?
I get a sense of community with the other swimmers. It's just the feeling of being free in the water. And while I'm not, it can feel like that for the couple of seconds right after a dive. I may be really anxious going into it, but then I get in the water and it's all gone just for those couple of seconds. But that's enough.
Yeah. No, I'm like getting chills. I know you can't tell because I'm wearing a sweater, but like, because that's how I always felt, like, and still do feel, you know, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling stressed from whatever's going on in your day. You're feeling like, I don't know, just like the literal and metaphorical, like, grime of the day on you, you know, and you just jump in and all of a sudden it's like, okay, none of that matters because I'm in the water. I'm free. I love how you described it as that.
Yeah.
As somebody who hasn't been swimming as long, it's not quite freedom. It's more like I have to stay above the water.
Actually, when you first get in, you have to stay below the water.
True.
Yes. Yeah. Heads up freestyle is not fun either, but right. Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing is like so many people are playing sports to get that feeling, you know what I mean? Because I imagine, I don't know anything about soccer and I'm not coordinated enough to kick a ball well, but
I love
Me
soccer.
neither.
That was my sport.
so Lane, you could tell us, like, did you feel that way when you were playing soccer growing up? Like, did you have that same feeling of just like release?
I definitely did. I would be kind of like the person on my team that would like yell and rally people and just be in the middle of the field, so focused on the game that kind of everything else would fall away.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm actually the reason that 2 of the people, just one.
The whole team, actually nobody.
Still, that's enough. I was the reason that one of the people stayed through most of the season because they just couldn't handle it. But then being able to swim with someone that they were friends with, just kept them going there for a little while. They did end up getting hurt near the end of the season and couldn't come back, but for the rest of the season, yeah.
I love that.
That's
Also, just
so-
knowing that helped.
Yeah.
That's so important. It's making an impact on even just one person. Like, they're going to remember how you made them feel for the rest of their life.
Are you planning to continue swimming throughout high school?
Yeah.
I love that. And
Even though I may hate it, I have a love-hate relationship with it.
oh, for sure.
As
It's-
I'm pretty sure all swimmers do.
It is cardio.
Right. Yeah, right. But afterwards, like during and when you first jump in, you're like, oh, this is awful. Why do I do this? And then afterward, you're like, I love swimming.
I just did that.
Right. Yeah, you survived that. So tell me a little bit about, like, you talked about that one teammate. I want to know, like, would you say that your teammates are accepting of you, or like,
Yeah.
tell me
Yeah.
more about that.
They just, like, they just get angry on my behalf at the stuff, and like there's not much that they can do, but where they can, they do try to support me for the most part with the people that I have interacted with.
That's wonderful.
That's really awesome.
Because I know something that, like, you know, I think about too, and when I think about the swimmer who I coach too, something I just really like feel for, and Lane, you could definitely jump in and tell us more about this too, because like it's one thing to be a transgender athlete who's playing like soccer. I'll use that as the example. Men's soccer uniforms are very similar to women's, you know what I mean? Same kind of, like, you're wearing the long shorts and the jersey, whatever. But with swimming, it is so revealing. And when we think about bodies, like, we can talk about body image just generally and how like hard that is. But then I imagine like being someone who's trans and like having to wear a certain swimsuit and being so exposed, like that is just a whole other level of just, you know, bravery and confidence and just like, you know, that you have to bring to it too.
Yeah, I actually just wear a women's swimsuit because like there's not restrictions on what I can wear. So I just, you know, just wear a women's swimsuit. But it is still so incredibly revealing to put on, just because then you have to be so vigilant about how it's all fitting in everywhere. And if it doesn't do it right, then you can end up with such a horrible feeling that it'll ruin your day or your week. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I know for me, I recently started swimming on Mallory's team, as she mentioned, and I also, around the same time, started testosterone. And so I'm very early on in the process, but I am seeing my body change and my muscles develop just because I have that hormone in greater amounts than I've had before. And so I had a swimsuit, and now I'm not fitting in it the same way, and I'm not as comfortable. And it really does. It takes you out of that like free headspace and puts you right back into like gender dysphoria, because your body's on display and like you just want to be able to focus on a workout, and you're just surrounded by that discomfort that kind of follows you around the rest of the day anyway. And so that like moment of peace that you are counting on unfortunately gets messed up. And so like that's just the price that you pay with such a revealing like outfit, and it has to be that way because like swimming has lots of drag. So yeah.
And then you have to go get dressed in some public restroom.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's like a whole other thing too.
Because it's like, why won't you get off?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Peeling a wet swimsuit off, my least favorite feeling.
Plus it's just the feeling of like going from being wet to like
Being damp.
damp. Yeah. I wasn't gonna say the word. I'm glad you went there next. Thanks.
It's the only right word.
It is. It is.
That's true.
Except maybe a word that people hate more.
Don't go there.
No.
I was gonna say it. I was gonna say it. y'all can use your imagination there, but yeah. So it really is just like the fact that you're going through all of this, you're experiencing the gender dysphoria, you're having to figure out like the locker room situation, whatever, all of these things, and you don't even get to compete for your high school.
Yeah.
I just.
And that also prevents you from like lettering in the sport.
Right. It's
Nix is nodding her head.
yeah, and it's like not that your varsity letter means anything, right? Like mine's probably sitting in a box somewhere, like collecting a million dust mites. But it's still like it matters to you now. You know what I mean? And that's like the hallmark of that experience too. That you don't get to.
Yeah, to get varsity, I don't remember what the exact percentages were, but it's like 75-ish% of meets and practices that you have to go to. And I go to probably 95% of the practices, but none of the meets. So ultimately I can't do anything because I can't go to the meets.
That's so frustrating. Well, what are some of so you talked about your times, what are some of your proudest moments from being a swimmer? Like, what are you most proud of having accomplished so far?
So this past season, going into it, I couldn't maintain my breath long enough to do more than a breath every 2 strokes. And then throughout the season, I just tested myself, and I got to the point where I could do a 50 doing one every 5.
Nice.
And then also I couldn't breathe well enough to get through a 100, and then by the end of the season, I broke my PR, I think 5 times.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
amazing.
To get down to time of 1:38, I think.
That's
so
amazing. I'm so proud of you. I love that. And I love that you, like, it seems like all things considered, you are being able to have the space during practice to work toward a PR. You know what I mean? Like, you have that chance to try to get your best time. It's not the same as doing it in a meet, but I love that you still have that drive to be able to, like, you know, better yourself, improve your times, and, like, challenge yourself. What is something, and, you know, I'm sure there are a lot of things you want to say to people who are transphobic, to people who, like, don't think you should be able to compete for your high school. But what are some things that you'd want to say that, like, maybe help clear up misconceptions, or just, like, what do you wish they knew about you?
Just because you're trans doesn't mean you're going to be better at it. That's just misogyny with extra steps. That's just like implying that men are better than women at everything automatically with so much less work. But, like, that's just not going to be true. Like, the fastest people on my team last year were, like, the 3 fastest were all girls.
Really?
Yeah, and, like, this year, like, the fastest are boys, sure, but, like, they're not at distance by any means.
Sure.
And, like, not by everything by so much. Like, there are a couple standouts, but, like, just because you were born a boy, you're not going to be more athletic. That's just misogyny.
It is. Yeah, and it kind of invalidates, obviously it invalidates your experience.
Also implies that trans women are men.
Right. Exactly. And I love how you describe that. Just
Misogyny with extra steps. I will be taking that with me.
Right. Yeah, because it's, you know, and that's something I noticed with the team that I coach too, is that there are so many people who are fastest swimmers who are the cisgender girls on the team.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the cis boys who are blowing, because especially, you know, when you're 12, 13, 14.
It doesn't matter.
It does not matter. Like, puberty hits everyone at different times, and so, like, you know, the typical, like, huge muscles, you know, super tall, whatever. A lot of times cis guys aren't developing that until even, like, late in high school, early college too, you know? So, like, for most people when they're competing at the high school level, that doesn't matter, you know what I mean? And even once they get to college, oftentimes doesn't matter. Like, there's not that huge difference.
Yeah. Also, like, a point that trans people will try to bring up when it comes to swim is Leah Thomas. But, like, she stayed the same distance from the world records after she transitions. Like, before, she was like, I forget how long it was, this one distance of time from the world record, and then after she transitioned, same amount of time from the world record.
Right. And honestly, I don't remember. It was the 500 freestyle that she won. Is that correct?
I don't remember.
I think it was the 500 freestyle. It was around this time last year at the NCAA like championships for swimming. And I'll, you know, correct myself if I'm wrong, but that's kind of what I remember. So that's what Nix is talking about. I'm so glad you brought that up, because first off, I was like, when's the last time anyone has cared about swimming that much, except for when Michael Phelps was in the Olympics? You know? Everyone was claiming.
And also, like, if we're going by advantages at birth, then, like, Michael Phelps shouldn't be allowed to. He has so many, like, genetic advantages, just, like, massive hands and feet, and, like, a giant body, like, super tall. Like, that's just going to give you so much advantage against someone that's, like, 5'6" with tiny little hands.
Also, this whole argument against trans athletes is just coming from a scarcity mindset of, like, there can only be, like, one greatest athlete in every sport. And, like, why can't we follow Nix's lead and celebrate individual wins with each swimmer? Because no matter what you're doing in your life, there's always going to be somebody who's better than you or somebody who's worse than you. And so, like, we just have to accept that reality and celebrate everybody's, like, what everybody's bringing to the table.
Right.
Because there's not going to be, like, the one greatest. It's going to change all the time.
Yeah.
So just the whole argument is frustrating.
Right. Because even, like, you know, as a cisgender girl who competed in high school swimming, it's not like, oh, just because, you know, there were no openly trans swimmers on my team, therefore I was the greatest and I got all these. No, I was not. You know what I mean? Very much not. You know what I mean? So I love how you pointed out that scarcity mindset, that it's not like, oh, just because you're on the team now, nobody on your team can be fast. No, it is just Nyx. Like,
and we could talk about biological advantages for until the cows come home, but why don't we talk about the emotional sandbags of existing as a trans person in a world that wants you to die?
Also, if we're talking biological advantages, how is having chronic pain a biological advantage?
Right. It's like quite literally, despite all these odds, like here you are still going at it.
Yeah.
And absolutely crushing it.
100%.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us that we haven't gotten to talk about?
I don't think so.
All right.
Cool.
I think I'm good.
Nailed it.
Well, Nyx, thank you so much. I understand that, like, we've now just drilled you and made you think about all of these things that are like, oh yeah, all of these things that suck. Let's think about it, right? But like, I just want to say thank you so much. I always love talking to you about swimming. I love just talking to you in general, and we're so happy to have you here on the podcast. And
Thank you.
I know we're all going to be rooting for you in this next swim season to, you know, take that, 38 seconds? We're gonna break 30 this season, right?
Actually, I don't think it was 38. 38 was it was minute 38 for my 100. It was, I think it was 35, 34.
Oh my gosh. There. Yeah, okay, yeah, you're gonna break 30 seconds. That's my goal for you.
I will be anxiously awaiting the news.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nyx. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening to this episode of Speaking Queerly. If you like what you heard today, feel free to subscribe to KYC on all social media platforms at KYC Ohio. And please, if you like what you're listening to, go to kycohio.org/donate to make a donation. You can either make a one-time donation or you can sign up to be part of our Unity Circle, and all of your contributions helps KYC continue to perform or, you know, provide the services that we do, including drop-in center programming, education, outreach, housing, behavioral health supports, community-based wellness, and tools like this podcast that you're listening to right now.
Yeah, and if you have a question or a topic that you want featured on an episode, feel free to email Mallory at mallory@kycohio.org.
Thank you for reminding the listeners. I totally forgot to shout that out.
No, you're welcome.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening, and we can't wait to see you again, talk to you again soon.
Except you don't talk back.
That's true. Yeah. You could if you sent me an email. We'd love to hear you. We could have a conversation.
Crazy how that just happened.
I know. Talk to you soon.